Welcome back to Sports Hop. It is on and popping. We got another dope episode for you today. Episode 30. I can't believe it, man, how time just flies by so fast. And speaking of things happening fast, this was a rather slow process at first, but shout out to the Los Angeles Lakers. They nabbed their head coach, JJ Reddick, former Clipper, former ESPN analyst, brilliant basketball mind. He agreed to a 4-year deal with the Lakers. They couldn't land my man over at UConn, so they pivoted to Reddick, and I personally believe that it's going to be an interesting, experience for the next 4 years. Hopefully he can hang on for 4 years, right? Because every coach the Lakers have had since 2011, they've ran through 8 different coaches in the last 13 seasons. So hopefully they can get it together. I think Reddick, in my book, is a good selection. He's got a brilliant basketball mind. He knows the game analytically. Can he connect with players in the locker room? I think him and LeBron have already established that relationship, right? They had the podcast going during the last few months of the season. Were there subliminal shots at Darvin Ham when he was on his way out? I personally think they were just basically talking basketball. But nonetheless, JJ Reddick is the new coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. He's taken over a team, that's only finished above 6th place in the Western Conference one time since 2012. So 12 seasons, you only managed to be in the top 6 in the West only one time. So there is some cause for concern in Los Angeles. I am a purple and gold maniac, as y'all already know what time it is with me on this show. I love the Lakers. I'm hoping they can turn things around. But before we get too celebratory here, Solomon, what are your thoughts on this hire? Because I personally believe that Reddick, from an analytical standpoint, is going to do wonders for the organization. I think he could connect with players, but he doesn't have any coaching experience on a major level. What do you think about this?
Well, it's interesting because I feel like the Lakers, the last few times they've had coaches, they've been sort of trying something unique, right?
Yeah.
You get a Luke Walton in here, a guy with no real coaching experience. You're thinking about Bill Walton and his time with the Lakers, and you're going, maybe this is a spark. I think the last serious coach they had was Frank Vogel. There's a guy with a proven track record.
Yeah.
And he came in, and I thought he did well in the defensive end. They questioned some of his lineups and stuff, and when they had the Lakers, they just didn't have a great season, after the bubble. And then you bring in Darvin Ham. So Darvin Ham is another guy who, on paper, he looks good because, he's assistant with the world champion Milwaukee Bucks.
Right.
But again, it's more of a project. It's not a proven guy, And so they did that. They did that for a couple of years. And, if you look at the guy's record, I mean, he performed, but I just felt like they didn't think he carried that leadership pedigree, where you just look like a leader. And so I was thinking this year that they were going to go out and get a proven coach. And I thought, the approach of going into the college ranks and getting a respected coach was a good approach, because then you bring a guy in who's got the pedigree, he's got the coaching experience, and he's got a name that he's bringing into the pros. When that did not happen, I was a little disappointed when they went with JJ Reddick, because at that point I was thinking, well, here they go trying something unique again, and it's like you're just taking chances. And I keep hearing all these references to Pat Riley, the new Pat Riley. He's got nothing in common with Pat Riley other than a haircut at one time or a suit or whatever. But I feel like they're taking a chance again, Now that being said, we don't know what happens behind the scenes. Obviously, LeBron has a big influence on what happens in this. He's got a couple years left that he's going to play. So, JJ Reddick's got a 4-year deal. So maybe somewhere in there, at some point, LeBron had to look at JJ and say, he's my guy. And Rob Pelinka had to go along with that. And, that being said, who knows who the Lakers draft, since we're sort of going with what LeBron wants for the next couple of years. Maybe you see his son on the Lakers team anyway. But, best of luck to JJ Reddick. He does have a smart basketball mind. I just hope it's a situation where he can really lead this team, and it's not just another, just show for the purple and gold.
Right. Well said, and I agree with you to a certain extent. You know, over the years, the Lakers organization and the front office, they've had a short leash with these coaches, right? I mean, Frank Vogel won a title in the bubble, and they still got rid of this guy after they won a world championship. Nonetheless, they gave Frank Vogel the short end of the stick. I thought Darvin Ham, who only had 2 years at the helm, he did a good job with the Lakers. I mean, in his first year, they went to the Western Conference Finals. Yeah, they got swept by the Nuggets, but every game was tight. It could have went either way. And this year, they had the unfortunate luck of running into the Nuggets again in round one. It was a gentleman's sweep. The Lakers did grab one game, but without Jamal Murray's miracle antics, right?
Yeah.
He basically won 2 games for Denver in the final seconds. He hit the game-winning shot. So at the end of the day, the Lakers played hard. They played tough. I thought Darvin Ham did good with some in-game adjustment strategies. I thought that he was a good coach overall. I don't think 2 seasons was enough for him to prove his track record as an NBA head coach. So I think the Lakers really don't have a level of patience with these coaches. So now you're bringing in J.J. Reddick on a 4-year deal. He doesn't have any coaching experience at a major level. It doesn't mean he can't get the job done.
Right.
But based on past performance in terms of the Lakers on an organizational front, I'm a little bit worried about Reddick because I don't know how much of a leash they're going to give him. Again, with that being said, he's not inheriting, this phenomenal roster. When you look at the Western Conference, it's so stacked. I mean, it's loaded. It's more loaded than a baked potato at Wendy's. You feel me? So keep that in mind. You got the Oklahoma City Thunder. They just picked up Alex Caruso in a trade. They moved Josh Giddey over to Chicago. You've got, Dallas, who just came and went to the finals and had a good deep run in the playoffs. Who knows what the Clippers can do if they can ever stay healthy. They're going to be basically moving into their own stadium this particular season in the fall of 2024. So you've got some teams in the West that are still going to be viable. There's still going to be a dogfight going on, and nothing's going to be easy pickings for the Lakers. They don't have a roster as constructed right now to compete on a championship level, in my opinion. I mean, you've got an aging LeBron James who's 40 years of age. He's still top 5 in the league in my book, still comes in phenomenal conditioning shape. Luka, you need to take a page out of LeBron's book and get it together with your physical build, okay? Go work out with LeBron and then come see the Mavs in the fall. You'll see a big difference, right?
Yeah.
You've got Anthony Davis, who's always a question mark because he can't stay healthy. He can't stay on the floor consistently. Now, this past season, I will give him his props and give him his flowers that he was able to maintain a presence on the floor. He played in about 80% of the games this year that the Lakers played in, including the playoffs. So props to Anthony Davis for keeping it somewhat healthy, but there's always a concern. There's always cause for pause with him on the floor because he's just one injury away from being out of the lineup. You got an aging LeBron James. You got an inconsistent D'Angelo Russell. Who knows what you're going to get from him night in, night out. The bench needs some help. They've had a bunch of injuries. Vanderbilt last year was on the injured reserve for a long time. You had a lot of key players that were in and out of the lineup. The bench wasn't consistent in terms of their usage and points on the floor. So I'm looking at right now Rob Pelinka, and I've got a target on him because he has to basically facilitate some moves and make the roster better. So, yeah, congratulations on the hire, Rob. Kudos to you on that. But what are you going to do from a front office standpoint to improve this team? Because the Lakers right now, they're a decent team. They're a playoff caliber team, but I don't see them making a championship run unless they make some moves and add some key pieces to the team. Speaking of adding key pieces, there's a lot of talk around the league that Bronny James, who is making himself eligible for the draft, which is happening next week, by the way, the Lakers may grab him with the 55th pick. There is some speculatory talks. There's some, whispers and some other conversations around the league in terms of what are they going to do. Now that J.J. Reddick is in place as the head coach and you got the working relationship and the friendship that LeBron and him have, they were doing that podcast for a number of months prior to Reddick's hire as the Lakers head coach. I would not be surprised if they add Bronny James on the squad. Bronny has made it clear he wants to be recognized as Bronny James, not as LeBron James's son, quote unquote. I like that response from him, Solomon. I think that he needs to sit for a couple of years. Now, if games are out of control and the Lakers are blowing people out or they're getting blown out, I would play him and put him on the floor maybe for about 5 to 10 minutes and just see what you get out of him, because nothing is better than in-game experience, right? But I think he still has room to grow, not just physically, but mentally as a player. I think under the tutelage of J.J. Reddick, Bronny James can blossom in the future and become a very decent player. Will he ever get to the level of his daddy, LeBron? Absolutely not. But it doesn't mean that he won't be a threat and that he can't be a quality player coming off of the bench. What are your thoughts in terms of the potential acquisition of Bronny James coming to the Lakers and joining Pops?
Well, I think that, let's not forget, if he is drafted, he will play in the summer league. I think we'll get to see a lot of him there.
Facts.
And I think, he'll see a little bit of development there, as well as, some NBA speed.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a good test for him. In addition, coming to the Lakers, I know he talked about wanting to be, sort of his own man, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how you get into the league. It's that you get into the league. I mean, look at some of the players that the Lakers have entrusted in, Alex Caruso and, Austin Reeves, people who, maybe weren't going to get drafted and came in through other means, but then they've established themselves on the Lakers and were able to go on another team. And now all of a sudden you have these bona fides of actually being a proven NBA player. So, with Bronny James, if he can get into the league, I think that's the most important thing, no matter how he gets in, whether it's under his dad or not. But eventually, if he gets that opportunity, at that point, he can prove it. And you never know, he may end up on another team and sort of be able to prove himself, coming out from under his father's shadow.
Right. And well said, and it remains to be seen. I guess we're going to wait and see how it all plays out. The NBA draft is next week. I'm excited. I think there's going to be some key moves being made, not only prior to the draft, but even after the draft is over. Speaking of moves being made, let's pivot back east to the world champion Boston Celtics. Shout out to the Celtics in Beantown, making it happen. They beat the Dallas Mavericks 4-1 in the NBA Finals. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, shout out to those brothers. They are champions. No one can speculate or question anything anymore about either one of them. And they're so young, Solomon, so I think they've got the ability, if they keep that core nucleus intact, which I think precisely is what Brad Stevens and head coach Joe Mazzulla intend to do. I think that if they keep this team intact, as currently constructed, that they can go on a deep playoff run and possibly a mini dynasty. I think that the Celtics are very viable. They're my pick to come back and win it all next year. Based on how I saw they played in the finals, there was a level of maturity that Jason Tatum elevated to, that Jaylen Brown also showed us some great gamesmanship, and he ended up winning the MVP. I think it could have went either way, right? Tatum in that last game definitely made his statement and made a case for that MVP trophy. But nonetheless, shout out to Jaylen Brown, the 2024 NBA Finals MVP. And the Celtics have proven, from a front office standpoint, from an organizational standpoint, when you got Joe Mazzulla, who's a great coach, great young coach, only 35 years of age, right? And you got Brad Stevens in the front office, formerly the coach in Butler in college, spent some time in the league as well as a head coach, and then moved to the front office in Boston. But they're the dynamic duo, right? They're making it all happen. Stevens is building through the draft, making key trades, making key acquisitional choices. So when you have the front office and the head coach on the same page, this is what happens, right? You get great players, you get great leadership, and you basically lead by example. So I would not be surprised that the Celtics could potentially go back-to-back with this, or maybe in the next, I'd say 3 to 4 years, capture another title or two. They definitely have the talent and they have the roster to compete. Derek White, they definitely got to give him a better offer. He's going to get the bag because of how he played, particularly not just during the regular season, but in the postseason, Derek White was a huge factor, as well as Drew Holiday. Shout out to that veteran. You know, he got moved to Milwaukee, and in his first year with the Bucks, he wins a title with them. And then they don't appreciate greatness, so they ship him off to Boston. And in his first year with Boston, he wins another ring. So this is the second time in Drew Holiday's career where he's moved around to a new organization, and he landed a championship ring in both cases. So shout out to him. Shout out to Derek White. I think the Celtics have a great core team. If they keep their roster as currently constructed, I would not be surprised if they go on a deep run in the next 3 to 5 years. I think they can win another title or two, Solomon. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, you got to look at the East, right? I mean,
yeah,
still got some very strong teams there. I don't know what's going to happen with Miami. I'm hearing, rumors that, they may want to trade Jimmy Butler, which means, a rebuild on that team. But you still have Philadelphia. It's always been knocking at the door. I mean, Joel Embiid, you almost start to feel sorry for him at this point because, he wants that trophy so bad.
Yeah.
And he's had a stellar career. He had some injuries last year, which was unfortunate. But, they could come back strong if they get the right players in place. One of the concerns I have with Boston is you have Al Horford, is getting older. I mean, he played a real vital part with them this year. Kristaps Porzingis, you talk about Anthony Davis being hurt all the time. Porzingis is hurt all the time, it seems like. And, he's sort of game to game. When he's there, he's effective, he's impactful, he's a powerhouse on the floor. But, you just don't know if he's always going to be there. So, so you have a core there, of course, of Tatum and Brown, and then you've got, Derek White, assuming they're going to re-sign him. You've got Drew Holiday, who's going to be a solid point guard for a while. But the East is still strong. You've got Indiana. I don't know that Indiana is their time. I still feel like they're too small, too much of a finesse team to really be able to get in there and battle once you get in the playoffs. But there are teams that can challenge them, not to mention Denver coming back, and then people just adjusting overall, seeing what Boston did well and making adjustments on their team with players, personnel, with coaching, with strategy to combat that. So we'll see. It's going to be a tough season. It's very difficult to repeat in the NBA, especially today.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll see.
We shall see. But shout out to the world champion Boston Celtics winning that trophy in 2024. I can't hate. I got to show love. I owe Joe Mazzulla an apology because this cat can coach, and he definitely is proven worthy. And this was only his second season as a head coach, and he's only 35 years of age, so they got a bright future ahead of them in Beantown. So watch out for the Celtics in the future, but I'm really happy, not only for Tatum and Brown and Derek White, but also the wily veteran, Mr. Al Horford.
There you go.
That was his first ring. I believe he's played in the league about 17 or 18 years. So capturing his first ring, he said he's coming back to run it back, so we shall see. Now let's talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder. A young team, Solomon, the second youngest team in the league. I love what they're doing in terms of making key acquisitions, making key trades. I mean, the Thunder just picked up Caruso from Chicago, and they moved Josh Giddey over to the Bulls. Major move made prior to the NBA draft. I really like what the Thunder have been doing. They've had at one point in time, right? They had 37 draft picks compiled. That's the largest amount in NBA history. There's been no team that had acquired that many draft picks in that short of a period of time, right? So Sam Presti in the front office, shout out to him because that's one of the best general managers in the NBA. A lot of these executives need to really take a blueprint of what the Thunder have been doing because it's working, right? They finished first in the West. They had the number one seed. They had a tough series against the Timberwolves and as well as against the Mavs, and they ended up losing. But nonetheless, at the end of the day, the Oklahoma City Thunder are a threat. I think they are definitely probably 2 years, 3 years away from being in the NBA Finals. I would not be surprised by any means if they capture a world championship in the next 5 years. Yeah, I'm going to repeat it. I haven't been drinking now. In the next 5 years, I believe the Thunder, as currently constructed with all these trades and all the number one picks that they still have coming, I would not be surprised if they go to the NBA Finals and they win the whole thing. If Shai Gilgeous-Alexander stays healthy, you've got Dort, you got Williams, now you got Caruso. And keep in mind, Solomon, next week in the 2024 draft, they got 2 first-round picks this year. In 2025, they have 3 more first-round picks. And in the following season, in 2026, they have 3 additional first-round picks.
That's crazy.
And all of this came because of when they shipped off Paul George, when they got rid of Russell Westbrook. A lot of question marks around that time, like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah.
A lot of people question the Thunder and Presti in terms of what they were doing organizationally. Wow, look at what that did. It paid off huge dividends. The Thunder are in a great position. I love what they're doing with their roster, and I believe the future is very bright in Oklahoma City, particularly that they've got Caruso now who can defend. He can stretch the floor on the pick and roll. He can shoot the ball from the outside. So I think Oklahoma City is primed to make a deep playoff run next year in the West, and the West is stacked, right? What are your thoughts on that particular move, with what the Thunder did to pick up Caruso and ship off Giddey to Chicago?
Well, I thought it was interesting because Caruso's primarily known as a defensive guy, a lockdown defender.
Yeah.
Josh Giddey is more of an all-around player. And so it was an interesting trade. So the only thing that I can really think is that, Caruso may come in, as maybe something potential they can use to trade to get more players. Because think about it. The one cool thing that you saw about Oklahoma City last year was their poise for such a young team. I mean, they were just constantly calm and collected. They reminded me of the old San Antonio Spurs, how they were just, they just were about their business and about that game. They weren't trying to be starry or flashy.
Right.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was one of the players. He wasn't, like, I'm the man and all of that. He was just one of the players there. And they played such a great team. So when you think about it, you get a team that young. Do you really want to mess with that nucleus too much with new players coming in? So I wouldn't be surprised if you see them use some of those draft picks to get some trades and get some more veterans in there, or maybe one star player to put them over the top. One of the things we felt like they lacked was playoff experience. And so that was one of the things that hurt them once they got deep into the playoffs. So Alex Caruso may be that guy, or he may be trade bait to get someone else. But, I thought it was an interesting pick. Josh Giddey, again, I think, he's a great player, but I think he was replaceable, probably the weakest link on that team. So we'll just see if they're going to decide to keep Alex Caruso, put him in the starting lineup, or use him to get somebody better.
Right. I honestly believe because of the acquisition of Caruso, I think the Thunder are doing that with a purpose. I think that he's going to be a key part of that nucleus in Oklahoma City. I don't believe they're going to get rid of him by any means.
Okay.
I think he's going to be around for years to come. But we all know this is the NBA, and anything can go down at any particular moment in time. But shout out to the Thunder. I really like what they're doing. Their front office is phenomenal. Shout out to Sam Presti, one of the best executives in the league. They've got such a young and talented core group of team. The players are really athletic and exciting. And, the future's going to only get brighter with all these number 1 picks they got coming, these first round picks coming this year and the next following 2 years after that. So it remains to be seen. The West is stacked. I think the East is much easier. I think the Celtics can get through the East much easier than these Western Conference teams, of course. So we'll see how it plays out. But shout out to the Celtics for winning the title once again. I'm looking forward to next year to see how this all unfolds.
That's hard to say as a Laker fan, huh?
It is, but ain't no hate going on over here. I don't sip haterade, baby. I just congratulate. That's what I do. But at the end of the day, we're going to move on. And shout out to K-Dot, Kung Fu Kenny, the Pop Out, Ken and Friends. I mean, the legendary Kendrick Lamar. The other night, the Amazon Music live streaming event at the Forum. Man, talk about going off. It was a major event. I was in the building, and it was a great time. And, K-Dot definitely had bars. He opened the show with Euphoria, right? Which was one of the diss records he had because him and Drake were going back and forth. And, I love what he did in terms of showcasing a lot of up-and-coming West Coast talent. You had Problem in the building. You had DJ Mustard. You had DJ Head. I mean, you had Meet the Whoops. You had all these artists. Dr. Dre made an appearance and did Still DRE with Kendrick giving him a little bit of help because Snoop wasn't present. He's on the road. But nonetheless, you had the West Coast in the building. Shout out to CEO Wacko. There was a lot of cats, a lot of artists. YG pulled up. I mean, it was just phenomenal. Jay Worthy, just a lot of West Coast legends were in the building. A lot of up-and-comers were in the building. I had a great time, but Kendrick Lamar is definitely king of the West Coast. Snoop officially gave him that title the other day on Instagram when I saw him give him the shout-out. And the fact that he was able to bring these artists at the end of the show from all these different hoods, right? He just came with a message of unity, a message of prosperity, a message of peace. And that's never been done on that stage, right? So that was a huge moment for the West Coast. I love the direction of what the West Coast is doing musically. You know, you've got that new Chupacabra album as well with DJ Quick and Problem. You got Kendrick Lamar shining. He's about to shoot a video here in the next few days. And They Not Like Us not only became one of the greatest diss records of all time, it's one of the biggest hits of all time right now because that song is on repeat. I love that record. Shout out to DJ Mustard with the production. It was definitely a dope record, and I hear it everywhere I go. I mean, I'm hearing it on these sports networks. I'm hearing it on TV. I'm hearing it in the streets. I mean, it's just a phenomenal record, and you can't never go wrong with such a generational talent like my man K-Dot, Kung Fu Kenny, Kendrick Lamar, all the above. What a great stage presence. What a great show. Shout out to, PG Lang and the whole squad and the whole team and Amazon Music and everybody, Tim Henshaw. And it was just a phenomenal experience. It was well organized, well put together. Shout out to the Bay Area ambassador as well, E40, for coming in and narrating the opening of the show. Even though he wasn't there, he did that remotely, and E40 is a legend. Shout out to the whole West Coast, the Bay Area, all the way down south to LA and in between the Central Valley. So we got a lot of up-and-coming MCs. I got love for everybody out there trying to shine and put their stamp on the game. I love what they're doing. A lot of talent out there. And it was definitely a big-time show to witness. You had LeBron James in the building. You had Russell Westbrook not only in the building, on stage. You had my man from the CPT, you know what I'm saying, that was in the building. And you also had James Harden, who pulled up. DeMar DeRozan from the CPT was in the building as well, currently a Chicago Bull. But I love the support, not only from the community, but from all these NBA players coming in and representing. It was definitely a great time. And it was phenomenal. Did you get a chance to check it out, Solomon? Did you peep game on that?
I didn't, but I had a lot of podcasts here where people were talking about it. But I thought the real cool thing was coming off of the success of the diss tracks, that he leveraged his popularity to hold a show right in the middle of LA at one of the most iconic venues that we've ever had in the Forum.
On Juneteenth.
Yeah, on Juneteenth on top of that.
Yeah.
And it just sort of cemented that whole thing of, LA rap, LA culture, LA unity, regardless of gangs, regardless of all of that. I mean, they had Tommy the Clown there. And for you guys who don't know who Tommy the Clown is, Google it and you will see that, here's a man who's taken kids and driven them to different parts of the neighborhood, and they share their talent, and they're dancing with people all over LA. And so just some very iconic people there, like I said, along with the stars that you mentioned. But just the right timing, the right perfect thing coming off of the diss tracks to just really bring LA together.
Yeah. And I love the mini black hippie reunion, J-Rock and Ab-Soul, and it was just phenomenal. It was a great show. I mean, everybody and anybody who's part of West Coast music was in the building, and I loved it. It was a part of history, and I'll never forget it. Shout out to Kendrick Lamar, PG Lang, the entire West Coast stand up. Definitely gonna be even hotter summer in 2024 with all this great music that's going to hit the airwaves. I'm hell of excited to see the direction of the West Coast and hip hop moving forward. Speaking of moving forward, shout out to the Indiana Fever. Caitlin Clark, Aliyah Boston. They've won 4 consecutive games, Solomon. The Fever now sit at 7-10. They're making a push. And who knows? Maybe a playoff push is in the future for Miss Caitlin Clark and Aliyah Boston. I think they've been balling. The Fever are definitely coming around. They're gelling. I think it takes time, right? Because Aliyah Boston is only playing in her second season. She was the first pick in the first round last year.
Right.
Then they went back-to-back with Caitlin Clark in year number 2024 in terms of her being the first round pick. So I think that they're gelling at the right time. I like the chemistry between Clark and Boston and the rest of the team. They've stepped up defensively. Caitlin Clark seems to have settled under her wing in terms of being able to not only distribute the ball, but shoot the ball well. I still think she's got a big target on her back. I think players are definitely playing a little bit more aggressively with her, but this is basketball. It is professional sports. I think she's handled it gracefully. She is a generational talent. We know what time it is with Miss Caitlin Clark. Leading the WNBA in points per game, averaging 16 points per game, 5 boards and 6 assists. So I love what she's doing as a rookie. I love what Aliyah Boston, she doesn't get talked about as much because of all the hype surrounding Caitlin Clark, but Aliyah Boston's averaging almost 13 points a game, almost 8 boards a game, and 2.5 assists a game. So I think they complement each other on the court. I like what the Fever are doing. They're gaining momentum. I think they're building chemistry and camaraderie. I like what they're doing. What are your thoughts on how they've been doing the last few days in terms of putting a winning streak together over the last week or so?
Well, I think that's been phenomenal. But what I really like is the one thing that you didn't talk about, which is the controversy over Caitlin Clark, because that's been the story so much all this time. But now, like you said, she's starting to settle into her role. She's been accepted on that team.
Right.
She is a net positive, and she is making other players around her better. And that's becoming the story. So that's what's so powerful about this. Everybody talked about the Caitlin Clark effect with regard from everything from chartered planes to more views. But now you're starting to see her impact the professionalism of the league, people starting to get in and really look at the strategy and the points per game and the star players who are really making it and really trying to, elevate their teams. And so I think that's the real Caitlin Clark effect. I'm excited to see it, and I'm excited to see where they go this year.
Yeah, and speaking of the Caitlin Clark effect, the WNBA over the last few years has been struggling. They've been bleeding money. They've definitely been in the red. The league overall has been losing money. And this came out recently, and at the end of the day, the Caitlin Clark effect does matter. Small market, Indiana. The Fever right now, currently, the value of the Fever has skyrocketed. I believe they're currently worth about $90 million. And the LA Sparks, and one of the biggest media markets in the country, is worth about $85 million currently as we speak. So there's a clear Caitlin Clark effect when it comes to elevating the value of the league, elevating, basically the perception and what's going on. More people are tuning in. More people are attending games. Not just the Fever games. Overall, attendance is up in the WNBA. So I think the league has a bright future, but these new stars coming in, Aliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark and even Angel Reese, I think it's going to definitely help elevate the league. But shout out to the Fever and Caitlin Clark. 4-game winning streak. They are 7-10. I hope you continue to win and build momentum. I love watching what you all are doing on the court. Now, this is episode number 30. You're watching Sports Hop. Mack B's in the building. Solomon's in the building. Make sure you follow the movement at Mack B, M-A-C-K, B as in boy, _ at Sports Hop Media. We appreciate the love. Keep it locked. Hello. Thanks for watching Sports Hop. Subscribe here for all the latest news on hip hop and sports. It's your boy Mack B.